Anyway, Claire Pearsall, who survived 3 hours with me last week and didn't get it, so fingers crossed for today. I think it's because you hang around with horses a lot. Yeah. You hang around with a lot of dirt and muck, and I think that makes you healthy.
It does, yeah.
She's
my
a
immune
good, solid,
good. Good solid girl, thanks.
Good solid breeding stock. That's what Claire is. Good solid breeding stock.
There you go.
You know those sickly. I've become one of those sickly people, and I despise myself.
Come out into the countryside.
Got to go live in the countryside. Is that what it is? I live in too clean an environment in the city.
You do. A little bit of dirt.
This is the answer, folks. But there we are. Ukraine. Let's come back to Ukraine. Asking for calls on this. Obviously, calls are always welcome on anything we're talking about. Are you hopeful? Do you think we are going to see a ceasefire deal? The US definitely want one. Everyone, I mean, God, we want the war to stop in Ukraine. And people say, oh, if you don't want the war to stop, you're a warmonger. Well, it depends on what terms it would stop. Because, again, we could have not had a war with Hitler in 1939, but on what terms would we have had to agree to not go to war with Hitler? We just leave the whole of Europe under Nazi control and face a constant threat on our shores. I mean, come on, guys. It's about the terms. Do you think there are any terms that are going to be involved in this that Russia will end up agreeing to?
It doesn't feel like it. I mean, it's not in Russia's interest to go agreeing to anything that anybody else
I think you'll find that Putin is the only one who wants peace if you check more closely with Donald Trump.
OK. Yeah, I mean, if we believe that, we'll believe anything. I don't suspect for a second that that is actually what he feels. I think Putin will quite happily carry on fighting. He isn't going to kowtow to anybody. He never wants to be the loser in any situation.
Do you think he's been playing Trump like a fiddle?
I think so. I think the pair of them have been using each other as dance partners in this and looking the strong man and looking to be the world leader. And it's only going to end in disaster.
I mean, one could hope that somehow through this madness we can get to something resembling peace. I mean, people, again, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of young men. I'm not just worried about the Ukrainian men, the Russian conscripts as well, who are being fed into the meat grinder, who are dying. But again, on what terms is that peace? Because I think let's be realistic. You know, Ukraine ain't getting Crimea back anytime soon. No. Certainly while Putin is still in office. Looks like most of the Donbass will be gone as well. But at the very minimum, there has to be a guarantee of the territory that Ukraine still retains, which is 80% of their territory. Now, realistically, that can only be maintained and protected with NATO membership or a guarantee. I don't even think a guarantee from America is worth the paper it's printed on now under Donald Trump. He's so unpredictable. But certainly a guarantee with French, British and other coalition of the willing troops. There's more meetings happening today, tomorrow and Friday about that. But Vladimir Putin has made it clear he would not accept having any troops. He would consider that an act of provocation. I mean, everything. Sneezing is an act of provocation to Vladimir Putin. If those troops were on Ukraine territory, at which point then? So how can Ukraine agree to anything if there's no guarantee? Because we know what Russia will do. It will do what it's always done and what it did after Crimea, and what it does with all of those states it considers its own area of influence. It will just regroup, train up some more soldiers, get the economy on fire, after the sanctions are over, and then it will take more territory. Well,
of course it will, and I think history teaches us that he isn't going to leave it alone. Just because he says, oh, this is the agreement now, doesn't mean it will be the same agreement in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, or whenever he feels like it.
Murderous dictators sometimes lie. I know. Shock. We're all shocked.
We are very shocked at that. So I don't think that we can take that as a cast iron guarantee. Peacekeeping troops, I'm not in favour of boots on the ground, I have to admit. However, if it's going to secure that area for Ukraine and the Ukrainian people, then I think we have to do it. So the devil's going to be in our interest.
My thing is that people say, oh, you send your own child off to war, would you go and fight? They're not asking us to fight. We're pointing out that this is about peacekeeping forces, and very, very simple message, which is that we can either contain Vladimir Putin in Ukraine, or we will end up containing him in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, which we are honour bound by treaty to defend. The Poles won't give a single soldier, not because they don't want to defend Ukraine, because they are so scared that they are going to be, on the list after Belarus and after Moldova. Vladimir Putin's ambitions are laid out and very clear. He doesn't shy away from them. It's like the Chinese, Xi Jinping and Taiwan. It's not like they're pretending they're not going to take it.
They've already said, and if somebody says something on, you need to believe that they're telling the truth.
Exactly. It's like Maya Angelou line, when someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. Exactly. The trade war, we've got the other trade war going on. It is fascinating, though, that, I mean, I do find it extraordinary, Donald Trump's treatment of Canada. The fact that this man is going to enable Mark Carney to bloody have a chance of winning that election later this year in Canada after the abject failures of the Liberal government. I mean, Mark Carney, again, I've met the guy. I say, our kids were at the same school when he was in London. He was wrong about Brexit. He was a complete fear-mongerer on Brexit, totally outside his independent remit. He's a fear-mongerer on climate change. He's worked for all the big banks, you know, the Goldmans and all of that. He's a very nice, charming man, highly, highly intelligent. But he's wrong about everything. Okay, he's wrong about everything, and this is not a man that I think is a good idea for him to be leading Canada. Whereas Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative leader, I mean, he's solid as a rock. This man is so sound on everything, and I really would like him to be leading Canada. Trump is basically re-energizing Liberal vote. Even saw he managed to help boost Trudeau's ratings by attacking Canada. Of course, at that point, look, I'm no fan of Keir Starmer, but you know what? If he dissed our Prime Minister and he dissed our country, well, then we come back. Because it's like if you want to criticise a member of your family and go, they're awful, blah, blah, blah. Someone else does it. Whoa! That's my family member. That's how it works. And it is how every country works. And Canadians who are fairly, sort of, people-pleasing kind of people, they're not going to put up with it.
No, they're not. I mean, Trump has done something which I never thought possible, to make Trudeau look competent.
I know.
I mean, that's quite impressive.
Such an awful human being as well. I mean, such a bad human being.
He sends his best.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. I mean, God, just imagine having to be married to him. I'm a feminist. I'm a feminist in my blackface. Oh, God, shush. Justin, shush. You're a little rich kid who just feels you're entitled to anything. Shush, go away. Glad he's gone. But this is the thing I don't understand. Treating Canada even worse than treating China. China is a hostile nation state who economically has been bombarding the world and America with cheap subsidised goods, which no one can compete with because they use slave labour and coal-fired power stations and the like. That's fair enough. But blaming Canada for the fentanyl problem in America, it's not even. It's like a tiny percentage comes through the Canadian border. Blaming them for immigration. Well, no, that's coming through Mexico. I don't know why he's treating a close ally state. Canadians, by the way, went and fought and died in Afghanistan for America after 9/11. I don't know why he's treating Canada like that. I don't know why he's including us in the trade tariff war either, but he is.
I think he's just spreading it around, isn't he, and seeing what he can get away with. And that seems to be President Trump's MO, that he will put it out there, see what happens, and then either
throws the grenade in.
Exactly, and then either reverse the situation, say, well, I didn't really mean that, and then go on to something else. And that's what he does. He doesn't take any shame in changing his mind.
No.
Most leaders don't like the U-turn. They get absolutely ripped to pieces for it. But with President Trump, he can just
even when he was asked about you called Zelensky a dictator, and he goes, did I say that? I mean, yeah, you literally said that, and it's on video. I mean, that's the thing. It's just sort of, it's very, very weird. I mean, and so were we all supposed to pretend you didn't say that now?
Exactly.
We're in very, very weird territory there. Can I also just ask, I mean, allied to Russia and Ukraine and all of that as well, very interesting development today, which came before we came on air today. We know there's been the arrest of the captain of the container ship that crashed into the tanker that was carrying fuel for the US military in the North Sea on Monday morning. Police have arrested the captain on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter. Again, huge big tanker crashed into. It was anchored, parked, I think is your technical maritime term earlier. I don't know.
I'm not a maritime
my dad sails and I always go like, I don't even know.
Understand.
It's the front and the back and the left and the right. I won't even play on that front. But you could see it. I mean, you could easily see it in your radar. Your job is to make sure someone is on watch and prevent these sort of things happening. But now we learn that the captain is not just a Russian national, and most of the crew were either Russian or Filipino nationals, according to the shipping company Ernst Ross. But it turns out the captain actually trained at the elite Russian naval officer school. Now, there's going to be some questions asked. The conspiracy theorists are going to be out in force on this one.
They certainly are, and I've seen some of it already. You know, when you flick through social media and you see this come up over the last 24 hours, it has been an absolutely burning issue. And it's the plot twist that none of us ever really saw happening. We thought they might have a hand in it, but to understand that this is a trained individual...
We don't know.
With potential links to the Russian government. I mean, we don't know. This is all alleged. We don't, until the facts come out, I think we have to be a little bit careful. But something doesn't smell quite right.
It's all very bizarre, isn't it? Another story I wanted to get to, front page of The Sun today. A senior aide to Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, has been accused of exposing himself to a 13-year-old girl and then following her. This is Sam Gould. He's a 33-year-old. He pleaded guilty to 2 counts of indecent exposure on Monday after the incident in Romford in East London. He appeared at Barkingside Magistrates Court. Basically, he also pleaded to another count of indecent exposure, flashing a 25-year-old woman last month in Hornchurch. He's a councillor on Redbridge Council. He hasn't been forced resign from that job. You're elected councillor, same as you're elected MP. But he's resigned from Wes Streeting's constituency office, where he worked as a senior caseworker. And the Health Secretary said, "There's no words to express my horror that a mother and her daughter have been put through the ordeal, and will have to deal with the trauma of it for some time to come." What happened is this 13-year-old girl walks past him. He's got his trousers down and he's exposing himself and having a good time, shall we say, in his car. She sort of looks in horror. He sees her. She runs away. He then gets out of the car and follows her. She's so terrified. She bangs on the door of houses, saying, "Help me, help me." Another motorist passes, sees this, basically takes down the licence plate of the car, realises something's going on and goes to her help. Absolutely terrifying. But the key thing here is, looking at the MO, one of the key things, people talk about flashers and people like that. There's no one's actually harmed, you haven't actually committed violence. Terrified the living daylights out of this girl, following her. Crucially, most people who sexually abuse, sexually assault, have at some point flashed. Most flashers don't go on to do that, but reason why you need to always report a flasher and identify them, you need to get them in the system. That first warning early on, but get them in the system so they're in the system, so if and when they do commit a sexual assault, they are in the system and can be traced. But crucially, very unlikely that he has done this. This is the first time he's done this. Well, we know it's already a second incident. That he's just happened to have been caught for 2 of them. Just happened, really? And that he would follow a girl in that circumstance, wouldn't have been frightened himself and just driven off. That suggests to me that, having covered a number of these cases, that he's done this many times before. How has he not been caught before? Again, look, Wes Streeting, you're not going to know that one of your staff is doing something like this, and quite rightly expressed outrage, and obviously wouldn't have him on his staff if he'd known. But there are far too many of these people around. This guy has gone in with Wes Streeting as an MP when he's visited schools. Yeah, and that's a really frightening thing. He's had access into places where there are vulnerable people. A position of trust. And as a local councillor, you will have respect in a community, you will have access to places where there are vulnerable people, young people, elderly people. And no checks are being have been maintained on him. But by the way, added to this, the Labour Party is still in favour of men who identify as being women, i.e. trans women, which are just trans-identified men, of being allowed into women's only spaces. Wow. Here's the thing, Claire. Is there a reason why women and girls don't want men in our toilets, in our changing rooms, we've talked about a gym, a gym yesterday. Is there women's refuges, prison cells? Is there a reason why women didn't want those men in their room? Because we don't know which men are going to be doing things like that. Exactly. So don't put them in. But we know what a woman is, and unfortunately, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom doesn't. Apparently not. Well, again, should we have our weekly check? Should we have a little weekly check for our penises? Nope. Still haven't got one. Just going to keep doing it until the Prime Minister of this country comes to his senses and realises that 0.1% of women in this country do not have a penis. That's what men have. That's the difference between men and women. But there we are. I'm old-fashioned like that.